Welcome to Young Patriots, the heartbeat of African resistance.
Amidst the current conflict between the West African Economic Monetary Union that is popularly known as Uemoa and the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, that was recently triggered by the President of Ivory Coast Alassane Ouattara's decision to obstruct Burkina Faso's turn to assume the two-year Council of Ministers rotational chairmanship, in a clear contravention of Article 11 of the Uemoa Charter, which stipulates that the chairmanship should rotate every 2 years among the finance ministers of member states. The Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and his Beninese counterpart Patrice Talon have moved in to help save the situation. The two heads of state, whose respective countries are among the 8 member countries making up Uemoa, that is together with Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger and Togo, with all the 8 countries sharing the CFA franc as their common currency, have expressed their interest to address the current conflict and work on strengthening cohesion within Uemoa, so that it may not encounter the same fate as ECOWAS. Speaking in a press briefing from the Beninese Presidential Palace on the Tuesday of July 15, 2025, during the Senegalese leader's 2-day working visit to Benin, the two heads of state said that the conflict was top of the agenda in their discussions, and that going forward, they will involve their 6 other fellow Uemoa heads of state to address the situation as soon as possible, so as to eliminate this feeling of marginalization and discrimination against the Alliance of Sahel States. And before we proceed, take a listen at what they had to say in that press briefing. We have just finished our discussions between President Diomaye Faye and myself, and then, in a second phase, with our various delegations. The opportunity of this short report to the press allows me to reiterate to the President of the Senegalese Republic Diomaye Faye, my friendship and my thanks, especially for his visit to Cotonou with his delegation. We have scheduled and postponed this visit several times, which finally took place, and on behalf of the entire people of Benin, on behalf of my government and myself, Mr. President, I thank you for this visit. Thank you for the honor that you have given us by coming to Cotonou a few days before our national holiday, which testifies to the fraternity of the friendship that there is between our two countries, and the friendship that there is between you and me. We exchanged views on several points of common interest, and I would like to let the President perhaps give you a brief summary of what informed our discussions. Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would first like to thank you for all the hospitality and warm welcomes extended to me here in the African land of Benin and to my delegation. And I would also like to thank you for the quality of the discussions we had, with a broad overview of all the issues of bilateral cooperation, and also, above all, on the multilateral level, with the challenges facing our sub-region today. As soon as I took office, I undertook to make a tour to present my regards to my brother heads of state, and Benin featured very prominently in the calendar of these visits. Unfortunately, scheduling constraints and internal as well as external constraints on my part in Senegal and also on your part did not allow the visit to take place at the time I wanted. But I still wanted to call you on the phone and tell you how impatient I was to meet you. This side of the background obviously triggered a lot of friendship between us, because you picked up that phone with a lot of warmth and we had a very fruitful discussion at that time, that we continued on the rare occasions when we met. We obviously discussed the friendly and cooperative relations between Senegal and Benin, which are cordial and very friendly, even though we both noted that today, due to the quality of the relationship, we can do much more and much better in terms of trade. We also discussed the situation in the sub-region, both at the ECOWAS and Uemoa levels, as well as the security situation in the sub-region, which is very worrying. I took the opportunity to express my solidarity with President Talon and the brotherly people of Benin in relation to the painful events that have occurred in the context of the fight against terrorism, and to express Senegal's support in these times, which also affect us equally. We also talked about Uemoa, which, as we know, is also going through somewhat difficult situations that we need to address quickly, and President Talon and I agreed in the next few days to take steps to work on revitalizing the organization and giving it new life, of course, with the support of other counterpart members of the Union. Regarding ECOWAS, we just returned from a summit which was a moment of constructive exchange between the heads of state, and I reminded President Talon earlier on of the importance of the subjects we discussed and the challenges facing the organization, which, as in the framework of Uemoa, must also obviously reform itself to be better able to take on the challenges of our time. I will conclude my remarks by reiterating my thanks to President Talon and the brotherly people of Benin, and wishing you and all Beninese people a happy Independence Day in anticipation. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. And may God bless Senegal and Benin. Thank you so much. It should be noted that the West African Economic and Monetary Union, Uemoa, has its headquarters in Ouagadougou, the capital city of Burkina Faso. The organization was established on January 10, 1994, with its headquarters in Dakar, Senegal, but the headquarters was later moved to Ouagadougou, and the current conflict between the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, comprising of Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, and Uemoa, stems from a combination of political, economic and institutional disputes, exacerbated by regional current geopolitical shifts and anti-colonial sentiments. As earlier mentioned, a significant trigger for the recent tensions was the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation countries' walkout from the Uemoa Council of Ministers meeting in Lomé, Togo, on the Friday of July 11, 2025. The Alliance of Sahel States Confederation delegations, representing Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, protested what they described as discriminatory and unfair governance within Uemoa, particularly regarding the refusal to rotate the chairmanship of the Council of Ministers. They accused Uemoa, under the influence of the President of Ivory Coast Alassane Ouattara, of obstructing Burkina Faso's turn to assume the chairmanship, which they viewed as a violation of the Union's charter, and an attempt to marginalize the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation nations within regional institutions. Another reason behind the current conflict is the push for economic sovereignty and rejection of the CFA franc, whereby the Alliance of Sahel States is actively seeking to break away from the CFA franc, which is a currency tied to the French treasury, and which they view as a symbol of neo-colonial influence, where on July 6, 2025, during a video conference organized by the Black Independence Movement, Bassirou Bassirou, chairman of the AES National Commission, announced the AES Confederation's intent to abandon the CFA franc and establish an independent monetary system. The AES perceives Uemoa's governance, heavily influenced by France, as perpetuating economic dependency, and this has therefore led to discussions about creating an alternative currency and financial architecture tailored to the Sahel's needs, further straining its relations with Uemoa, which administers the CFA franc for its member states. Additionally, the Alliance of Sahel States' decision to impose a 0.5% tariff on imports from several West African nations, including Nigeria, in April 2025, has heightened tensions with Uemoa and ECOWAS, with this tariff being seen as a challenge to existing trade agreements and a move toward economic autonomy, threatening the integrated economic framework promoted by Uemoa. Finally, the Alliance of Sahel States' creation of the Confederal Bank for Investment and Development (BCIDAES), with 500 billion CFA francs in initial capital, further signals their intent to build an alternative economic system, which conflicts with Uemoa's goals of regional economic integration under the CFA franc zone, and thus being another contributor to the current conflict. So in conclusion, the Alliance of Sahel States' push for economic and monetary independence, and a broader geopolitical shift away from Western influence is mainly the cause of this conflict, and the AES finance ministers' walkout from the Uemoa meeting and their threats to exit the Union entirely reflect deep-seated frustrations with perceived inequities and external control, signaling a potential for further regional fragmentation.
Thank you for standing with us, for standing with the truth, and for standing with President Ibrahim Traoré. In these trying times, your voice is powerful. Don't just watch, be part of the movement. Subscribe to stay updated, share to awaken others, and head to the comment section. Tell us how you feel, what you believe, and what Africa means to you. Together we are louder, together we are stronger. This is Young Patriots TV, and you are the heartbeat of the mission. Thank you.